of thought. We farm our thoughts. So we are looking to discuss our thoughts and ideas in an effort to establish who we are, reconnect, as well as renew ourselves. Because we know that something went bad down the line, and you know how that system works. If you don't farm your own thought, someone else will farm your thoughts, and then they are the ones who are going to harvest that. So we are trying to take back what is ours, take control of what is ours. And Farmers of Thought has 7 pillars to do that. One of them is governance, and we are coming from governance to you today. But there's also one on economics. There is one on spiritualism. There are several. As I said, there are 7 of them. So I don't know. Did you manage to resolve the clash you had, and how much time do we have with you tonight?
You mean myself?
Yeah.
No, I did not manage to convince them. It's just that I'm hibernating from them for some minutes. Then I'll have to escape from you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to dash out. Don't worry. I'll just make maybe 10-20 minutes with you. Then I'll dash out.
All right. And let's use the time wisely then. So
Shalom.
yes.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Let me quickly just do this right away. Just to be short, Farmers of Thoughts. It's a farm where we come together as families or as communities. We collectively, and thank you for your brief introduction. You've touched on almost so many things. The whole concept is all about coming together, finding a common ground to farm our thoughts on as Black people or children of Alkebulan or sons and daughters of melanin, whereby we're going to use our unity to re-establish or restore. Actually, it's to restore our pride and our dignity and develop our own from our own perspective. Now, the whole thing is the whole focus is on everybody detoxing, learning and learning, finding thyself individually. For a family is built by every individual coming together on a very same spirit and building a family. If a husband and a wife is not of the same spirit, the family, their marriage will collapse. But if we are of the same vision and mission and same comprehension of what life is and pride most of all in our ways, then we collectively come together and it's a marriage. Then we build our own family and our offsprings. The education we pass on into our children is standard and it's in agreement. It's not a situation whereby a father is giving this education and a mother is giving a contradicting one. You know, we don't want to breed confused children. So that is why everybody is coming with their comprehension and understanding of what should be. And we come together and we say, this is what could work, or let's try these different models and see how far it gets us. But basically, it's all about going back to whom we are, appreciating our indigenous systems and working back on it and proving that we are not wayward, we are not backward, but actually we are the birth, we gave birth to the civilization. I would love to forward our apology for our Bishop Maponga. In most cases, he joins and he's silent. Sometimes if he's not, he won't be able to join. However, when we get the recordings, I always forward it to him to follow. But what Bishop Maponga, all he's saying is that let's come together, find a common ground, and we come together as Black people. We farm our different thoughts. We develop our own orchard that we can feed from and not starve from hunger. Can I pause there and save time? I'm humbled. Welcome all, welcome. I'm gonna give over to the chairperson of the governance pillar, King Koko. He'll be taking us through the everything, and welcome to our guest speaker, magistrate from the Kingdom of Lesotho. We humbled by your presence. Looking forward to learning. I'm humbled.
Thank you. Given that you have a limited time with us, have a freestyle. Let us know, what is customary law and how is it different from common law?
Thank you very much, and I'm very, very honored to be given the space and time in this organization or the group. My name is Morapedi Makara. I am from Lesotho. Let me commence by apologizing for the poor arrangement on my part. I should have been with you last night. Even today, there is some mix-up. I just had a mix-up of time. So I'm double booked now. So I'll be very, very brief. I only wish there will be another time whereby I will have ample time to say more about customary law. Well, here in Lesotho, we have two systems of law. We run a dual system. So we have common law on the one hand, and we have customary law on the other. In brief, customary law, as you may or all know, is a way of life. It is not actually law in the strictest sense. It is the way we live as people of a particular area. So now we are talking about us. Let me use the word Africa. Us Africans. Customary law of Africans, Basotho in particular, are a particle of the group of people called Africans. Like we have Zimbabweans, that is a particle. We are one thing, but a particle will be a Zimbabwean, Kenyan, everything. Then we all form one load of people. If those particles would form a one unit. So let me give a picture of what is happening here in Lesotho, where I am living. So customary law as a Mosotho. In Lesotho, a singular person is called a Mosotho. Plural, we are called Basotho. So as a Mosotho, when I talk about customary law, I talk about, I am referring to the way any other Mosotho is expected to live. Am I still there?
You are still here, brother. Continue.
Okay. That is the way every Mosotho is expected to live. So that is, it is not similar to what the strict meaning of law would be. Because some people refer to law as something that is put there to give direction to what people should lead, to what people should behave or follow as the guidelines to live. What I'm saying about customary law is that it is the way we are already living, not what we are supposed to live. Nobody is putting the milestones or the guidelines of this is the way we should live. No, we are already living this way as a people. So this is broadly what I should put before you as what customary law means. So customary law is also about how we are structured as people. as people, we are, as Basotho, we are structured to be our, we are a people as a nation, but the origin of every individual is the family. So everything about customary law is about where do you come from. I come from a particular family. So that is how you are being groomed, how you are being raised, how you are expected to live until you leave this world, or or you pass on to the next life. This life, you are living in a certain way, in a particular patterns of life, which define you as a person, define you as a member of a particular family. That's where we start. We start with families of a particular bigger family, the extended family, bigger grouping, which may be a clan, like we used to have clans before we had nations as the people of Africa. There were no particular groupings named with nations back then. So that is how you grow as an individual, you grow as a group, until now that we grow as nations. So as Basotho, the law that defines us, or will resonate well with us, is the customary law of Basotho. It is very distinct to the laws that were brought in by the colonizers. Here in our country, the colonizers were the British. So they did not bring English law, because we had to be ruled from Cape Town. So in the Cape, it was not Cape Town by then, it was called the Cape Colony. In the Cape, by then, in the 19th century, which was about 1871, it was ruled by the Boers, the Afrikaners. So the Afrikaners are the descendants of the Dutch. So they used the Roman Dutch law then in the Cape. It is still used even today. So the colonizers had to impose on us Roman Dutch law, not the British law or the English law. So the distinction, I don't have much time. The distinction is that the Roman Dutch law is the received law, which now is not the way the Basotho are supposed to live as a people. It is the guiding law with which the Basotho are now expected to live. But when you go on the ground, you find that the Basotho are not the people who am I out now?
No, you are still here.
Hello.
You are still here,
Oh, okay.
you are still here,
Hey, my Wi-Fi here, it is making some signals that maybe it is poor. Okay. That law which is Roman Dutch law, it is usually referred to as here in Southern Africa as the common law. It is not the law of Basotho. It is the law of the colonizer, as I have briefly indicated. So I'm not going to elaborate very much distinctions. I think by saying that, we see that this one is supposed to be the law that governs the way the colonizers were doing their business from living as a person or transacting with other people or being governed as a people and governing as they were. While on the other hand, the customary law, because it is the way we were living, we would transact, and we still do here in Lesotho. We still transact our business according to customary law because it is the way that we live, and it is still recognized as a valid and competent law of the land. We transact our business, we govern, we are being governed, but not at the national government level. As in our villages, in our families, in our other forms of groupings, the groupings of the society, because some people are still adhering to customary law. But when we go to the government offices, the government business, the banks and other things, those are siding with or are being largely expected to be using that law which I call common law. Whereas as people, where we live day to day in our villages and other societal groupings, we still do business and relationships with the customary law. We also have here in Lesotho the systems of courts, whereby we have courts which only administer justice according to common law. And we also have courts which administer justice according to customary law. In either side, we have the bench, the people who hear cases, the bench, the magistrates, but we will be using different name titles, whereas we only mean one thing, because they are judges, whether from low level or up to the high level. But what I'm trying to say is that from either side, all the people who hear cases and determine the matters there are from school. They are university graduates, law university graduates, people with the Bachelor of Laws degree, which is also usually referred to as LLB. So on the face of things, the customary law part of the law of Lesotho and the common law part of the law of Lesotho should be treated equally, or is treated equally. The court, there is no court which is treated as better than the other, because customary law starts from the lowest court dealing with customary law up to the apex court, which is the Court of Appeal of Lesotho. Similarly, with common law, we start where the lowest court dealing with common law is. You start with common law up to the highest. So they are parallel, and they start from the lowest level of each to the highest. But the highest is we do not have the highest court, the appellate court dealing with customary law, and the other one distinct from that one dealing with common law. It is we have one appellate court, we have one high court. So the appeals from the courts dealing with common law go to the high court. The appeals from the courts dealing with customary law similarly go to the high court, then further to the apex court. The only thing that I must indicate is that we have the problem with personalities of us as Africans. Those lawyers or trained people who are lawyers and who will be employed as the bench. Now, it seems like the Africans, the trend that they are taking is that they not the system, the people, the persons do undermine their own law. You find that the people who we should be trusting to be Africans, now that we are independent, we are no longer under the colonial administration, so we are independent. We would be expecting that now that we are independent, we will develop our own systems. But the situation is opposite. Our bench is looking down upon our own law. The scholars, they do not want to develop our own law. They write colorfully about the received law, which is common law, but nobody is brave enough. I include myself there because I have to generalize. People are not brave enough to put enough effort to develop the law that is existing, the law that is their style of life, which is customary law. They do not. It is not being developed. It is. You find that a particular lawyer, whether is that lawyer is on the bench or is a defense lawyer, maybe, you find that they feel proud and confident, more confident when they are being perceived as people knowledgeable about common law, as contrary to being perceived as knowledgeable or knowledgeable about the law which is we are talking about, which is customary law of the land. So I do not know because my speech is so accelerated because I have to attend something which is now pressing my phone. My other phone is now indicating that they want me to engage now. I don't know whether I've just endeavored to address what you were asking me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much for that, my brother. What I can do is you go ahead and address what you want to address, and we, as the meeting today, we will discuss what you have given us. But that's important, really, really important. What we can do is look at rescheduling for next Friday again, and by 6 GMT, we mean 6 GMT. Let's give you that.
Yeah.
You go ahead and address that, and we will meet
Oh,
again.
okay. I know, like I,
Again.
yes, Malcolm.
Yeah.
I think you will recall that last night I said I will not be in the country next weekend.
Okay. Well done then. Because that will be the we'll talk. Let's talk offline about that one.
Yes, we'll talk offline. Yeah, the two of us, you and I.
All right. Cheers, brother. Thank you very much.
Okay. Welcome, my brother. Bye-bye, everybody. I really regret my brevity about this issue tonight. I'll avail myself and give it more time next time.
Cheers, brother. Thank you.
No, we are humbled, King. We understand that we are in a journey called life. We come across challenges, and whatever is meant to be, it's so. Whatever the speech that you've delivered today, it was very humbling, and it was meant to be. It's very interesting for me as an individual to learn that there's a country in Africa with a parallel system in place. You know, it's very humbling. It's very exciting. So no, next time we'll have more, we'll hear more. And thank you for your time within your very tight schedule.
Cheers and good night to you all.
Yes, yes, brother. I see your hand is up, my brother Christian Kwame Agboza. Do you have a question, brother Kwame?
I was appreciating
Ah,
others' representation.
thank you very much, my brother. Thank you. He will get that if he hasn't. But yes, we are humbled. Even me, having grown up in Lesotho, I hadn't realized that it was like that. I just know about the Roman Dutch law, and I hadn't really appreciated where it came from. I just know that that is what we embrace or we use in Lesotho. But at the same time, we, as I said in previous sessions, we have the Ubuntu, and that Ubuntu, I think the common law, the customary law will well from that. Or the two of them will be working together to sort of build that system which provides or facilitates for us as a nation from the lower level of the family to a village, then to clans, because we do have different clans. We are where we are now today because several other clans started moving south. We were all north. I would say most people are saying we came from the area around Cameroon and we moved further down. But some people are saying we came from Egypt. The jury is still out on how we traveled from the north down through Central Africa to present-day Southern Africa. So this is who we are. And my sister Tihalelia, she comes from the other side, closer to Botswana. Me and her, when we speak, we can understand each other. Using our local languages, there will be different differences here and there, but when we trace ourselves as well, we'll go to similar ancestors because they are ruled by the Bakwena clans as well, Bakwena chiefs. We were also ruled by Bakwena chiefs here in Lesotho. But some of our brothers in South Africa, more towards the Mpumalanga, who are predominantly called the Bapedi people, are ruled by different chiefs. But again, when you start to trace all of those lineages, we come from common ancestors. And again, when you look at the eastern encampment of South Africa, which is inhabited a lot by the Abangoni people, Angoni, let me say that, because there are many, there are different tribes. We're talking about the Swati, we're talking about the Zulu, the Xhosa, the Hlubi, and all of those. We sort of split a long time ago. But once you start tracing all of those, you find that we have common ancestry somewhere. And even the languages, you can actually understand when they speak. Even if you can't speak the language, you understand what it is they're talking about. So it is through the law, through the customs, through the cultures, you suddenly realize just how much family we are. We are family. And it's important we go back there and build from the ground up. That is just my observation for now. Any other observations?
Can I come in?
Go ahead, Queen.
Through you, Chair. You know, I'm very much excited actually by today's presentation. Especially how he explained the two parallel systems that are there within the kingdom of Lesotho. Now, what I've picked up is that it's taking us back to the education and how our systems is being destroyed. And I like what you said, because after after he disconnected, I wanted to say to you, can you take us through, But when you say that you are even you are not even aware, and then I was like, oh, okay. Then I realized that the education system that is being used, it embraced the common law versus against the customary law. However, the customary law, I love and I strongly appreciate the fact that the Kingdom of Lesotho is still recognizing it, and it's having a court whereby it's recognized. I want to make an example with us in South Africa. The customary law is no longer recognized. So even though we go to the tribal court, it's just for petty cases. It's not something that is well structured and well recognized, and that is what we need. There's one I forgot the name of the gentleman, one speaker who shared something. I think I've shared his YouTube link on the pillar. He said something very profound. I think he's a Nigerian journalist. He said, whose sovereignty are we talking about? Even when we go sovereign, whose sovereignty are we speaking of? Whereby we find that even though we still go sovereign, we want to go sovereign, we have to be very cautious that we don't go sovereign in the colonial or under the colonial system's leadership. But we really need to establish our system, that customary system, customary law. It really needs to be restored, appreciated and embraced, and be implemented. So it's very important that we as community or individuals, we start influencing and engaging our people to learn to know and appreciate, most of all, I think, appreciate our indigenous system and understand that. I always say to our people around here when they complain of issues of crime, and I will say to them, but in our indigenous ways, we never had issues with crime, because collectively, as in our indigenous structures, we settled according to what is called the kgoro, in Sesotho it's the kgoro. In Kinkoko's language, they will say the kgoro. In my language, we say the kgotla. So a particular surname, a particular clan will dominate a particular area that will be their landmark or their territory. And whatever the culture they apply is based on their systems, and they have a law that is governing them collectively. Now, when we are under the former homeland, which was Bophuthatswana, it was still recognized, and taken into consideration. But post that, then I can't say what happened to that. And now with the current setup, the other one is settled there, the other one is settled there, and so on and so forth. But now within this community that we are staying within, we start influence and teach our people that we need to unite and have our law, because according to the South African law, the challenge is that they are so proof orientated. You have to kill me first, then I prove that you kill me. So I take it and take self. Sometimes I go on fence, and then on the fence, I think somebody's mic is on.
Don't worry.
Or is it you
they
can?
got it. They Aubrey.
And then I beg your pardon?
Yeah, it was Aubrey.
Oh,
I think you took care of it.
yes.
Okay.
Now everything is based on evidence we want to see. So when you break into my house and I shoot and kill you, when you go to court, I could be charged of attempted murder, even though you broke into my house, you know. So the customary law, how it dealt with issues, it looked deep into the matter. So I'm greatly excited to learn that we have a country nearby here. It's not only that we are focused on South Africa, but or Southern Africa, but I believe that everybody sing their song. As I say that in Farmers of Thought, everybody tell their story, and it will be very humbling to hear other people's experiences from their side, from there. I'm humbled, King.
Absolutely. Thank you, my sister. Comrade Pigbin, any reflections from Kenya? And we also have Carrington. Welcome, Carrington. Anything on the law from Kenya from your end?
Thank you very much. But I think you mentioned, by the way, my brother from Kenya, what is your name? What is
Pigbin. Pigbin is there.
Yeah. My understanding of it was a very, let me start with the presentation first. It was a very interesting presentation, and I really loved this idea of a parallel system. And it was also very interesting to see that the same problems that we face in the country, and I know, Coco, we've been talking about this at length in our WhatsApp discussions, this idea of glorifying European systems. It was very interesting to see that, especially amongst the learned class. It's never umama at the market that is glorifying European system. It is always the educated class that is disappointing Africa, frankly. So it was very interesting to see that. I just saw that in Zimbabwe, they are going to spend something like 160,000 sterling pounds on buying wigs that are comfortable for their supreme judges, the highest court, because the other wigs that they have are very sweaty. So instead of wearing traditional headdress, let us look for more comfortable English wigs. I think sometimes we talk about colonialism a lot, and it is true, we ought to talk about colonialism, but I think the imperialist here is the mind of the educated African. This is the major imperialist here. We are in a prison of our own mind. So it was very interesting to hear the same experiences from Lesotho that I see in Kenya. Kenya is not any more special. A chief justice of ours called Mutunga removed this extraneous British government. And when he retired, the next Chief Justice restored the wigs and restored. So you start wondering, well, are we going to transcend the prison of the mind? So I have been trying to understand that, why we are like this. I think part of the problem is that it has to do with weak states. So we have to, I suspect, I need to do more research and listen to other people's views on this, but I suspect it has to do with the idea of compensating for a weak state. So if you have a weak state, you ought to show that the laws of your land come from a strong state. Like the United Kingdom, like Roman Dutch law, like I don't know what, and all the associated instruments, the garments, the wigs, to show that this is very old established law, to sort of communicate subconsciously to the public that the state is functional. So that is where our states, that is why we say our states derive their legitimacy from colonialism. So because of exactly that, they want to be seen to be a powerful state. But I guess the governance school here is advocating for something different. How about we derive our legitimacy from ourselves, essentially? So that was very interesting to see. And the second point, my Kenyan brother, and maybe if they're Kenyan sisters here, they can correct me, is that we do have customary law in Kenya, and partially customary, and we have always had it. The beauty of customary law is that first, it is less expensive. Just if you have a problem with your neighbor, try talk to the elders, go to the elders and sit down and have the elders describe to you and prescribe solutions, suggest solutions to you. So there's this level of practicality rather than hiring a lawyer who is educated and will charge you $1,000 to take the case to a court, which will take 6 years and will not be resolved. It's much more practical to resolve these problems using communal systems. So this has been the case in Kenya. We have learned the hard way that court systems fundamentally do not work. There is a huge court case lag in the country. So it's just better to try and resolve differences using other means, unless they are very serious, egregious crimes that require the participation of the state, essentially. So this is where I see customary law playing a very strong role. And we should think maybe of ways of accentuating the strength of customary law. I would here I am very Africanist. I think I would like to foresee a system where we replace common law, Roman Dutch law, almost entirely. So I'm here to listen to other people's opinions on this. So thank you very much. Yeah,
absolutely. No, you have raised valid points, my brother. Thank you very much. I think in Ghana, Dr. Nkrumah wanted to get rid of those weeks. Isn't that so, Brother Kwame? You are muted again. You are muted and then muted somehow.
I'm not aware of.
Okay. Yeah, he tried. I think the judiciary themselves refused and said, no, we want to keep hold of our weeks. And other people have claimed that because the weeks that they use in the courts in the West were originated in Kemet in Egypt, ancient Egypt. So they claim that the Africans are claiming back what used to be theirs.
Yes, I mean the argument. If you look at the history of wigs as wearing something over your head, that which is worn by men and that which is worn by women, that Africa is if you like, has a proprietary rights over the weaving of wigs, the period of wigs. That the idea that the wearing of wigs is European is false. Actually, an African. And then when you look at some of the pictures from Egypt, see them wearing wigs. And the English, the wigs worn in the British court system, was the court system was created far back by the Romans, and Africanus was, as you know, the one who invaded England and set up the original court system. And Africanus is an African, and he was the emperor at the time. So the Roman emperor was a black man who invaded England and created the system. So you could say that they are actually the way the wigs are, they are actually trying to imitate the African. So that is the argument that we are not when we wear wigs, when our people wear wigs, it's not that they are trying to hit anyone, but the argument can equally be made that under the new colonial system, the wearing of wigs is a symbol, so that those who wear it are, if you like, identifying with the new colonial power or the imperialists. So there is also that understanding, and it is on that basis that some people would say our lawyers or our judges or whoever should stop wearing them, because by wearing them they are affirming colonialism. Now, the presentation that the brother has made, very interesting. I made some notes. You listen to him. What he's essentially saying is that the problem that workers have is the same, whether they work in the legal system, whether they work in architecture, whether they work in engineering, whether they work in mining, it's the same, which is that there is neo-colonialism is such that you have sometimes parallel system where you have the Africans also want to uphold African values, African way of life, which he referred to as a customary law, and then those who want to uphold the law that was brought in by the imperialists, and that sometimes these kind of clash, and but when they do, as you know, within the neo-colonial territories of Africa today, when there's a clash between customary law and what he called common law, it is common law that is upheld, because common law is seen as if you like, more powerful because it's associated with the state. The question, I think we should let the brother, as he has agreed, to come and give a more lengthy discussion presentation, so that we can ask him certain fundamental questions, because you see, the heart of the matter for me, which is what we need to get at, is that, as he explained, our society started from family, clan, yeah, to extended family, and then the clan system. As far as I know, Egypt, it'd be interesting to know. I don't know about, I'm not aware that Egypt was a nation in the sense of a nation today, in the way we call a nation today. That ancient Egypt was itself a clannish system. In Europe itself, the first modern state was created. I believe it was. I mean, I stand to be correct. I think it was the nation of is it Amsterdam? That nation, that was the first modern nation state. And so then it was a trend, and then other Europeans then copied it, and then it became like, oh, this is what we all need to do. We all need to create states. Now in Africa, the clan, as far as I know, was the clannish system was the highest. We didn't go beyond that. Now the problem is that the nation that was brought by Europeans was a nation that also brought what is called civil society. And the thing with civil society is that it is run on the basis of property. The clannish system and the extended family and the family are run on the basis of human relations, or what you call Mubuntu, what you called Basotho, the plural, as opposed to Musutu. I'm trying to use the words he used.
Basotho is a plural, and Mosutu is one.
The Basotho system is so the clannish system is run on the basis of Basotho, which is the human relations, which is essentially it is solidarity. That's essentially what it is. We solidarize with everyone, with our brothers, our extended family, our clans. civil society is based on property. And after the agricultural revolution, we didn't need all these vast lands anymore. We didn't need them anymore in order to eat and to live. So the lands were there, they belonged to us, but we did not make use of them. Now, with those who with the imperialists, they had taken over the lands in their countries. So the elites, once that was the case, they took over all the lands. So you had a small minority now owning vast tracts of land. In Africa, we didn't do that. So the land was there. So when they arrived, they thought the lands were just there. They didn't belong to anyone. But the lands belong to someone. So what we need to do, what will be interesting to hear. Yeah. So what we need to do is the customary law, if it is going to be used, then must recognize the role of property, because that is what essentially the Roman Dutch law does. The Roman Dutch law, if you look at it at the end of the day, essentially it's about property. Who owns what? Yeah, who owns what? Who inherits what? It's essentially about that. But our laws are essentially about human relations, making sure that this brother and that brother, if they have a problem, it's sorted out, they live amicably as human beings. That is what ultimately, I mean, I stand to be corrected, but that is what ultimately our Basotho laws are about. You see, and as long as the nation state, the neo-colonial state, is rooted in property, our systems cannot fight it. This is the problem, and that is why it's sad that he said that our brothers and sisters in Lesotho who even practice the customary law are not developing it, and that is where I think it needs to be developed in the sense that it takes account of how to deal with property, because that is what the Roman Dutch law is very, very good at. And the imperialist state, imperialism, colonialism, and neo-colonialism, at the end of the day, are systems of property. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. I think I misunderstood you, so I ended up misdirecting you on the word you wanted to use. So if you wanted to talk about persons or people, you say Batu or Bantu. I think in Kenya is Batu as well, or is it Atu in Kenya, in Swahili?
Yeah, I think.
Watu.
Pardon?
Watu with the W.
Watu. So it's Watu in Swahili. But that's that if you want to talk about the people. But Basotho are
Brother Coco, it's not that I want to talk about the people aside, but I wanted to say that the way the people lived, that customary law, that customary law, that the way the people live, that customary law, that's our customary law. That is the same in West Africa, as you find, because we are all united. Where Sub-Saharan Africa has one fundamental, shall I say, customary system. Our systems are the same. So you will find that these laws essentially are about ensuring that as human beings we live in peace with one another. If there's a problem, it might end up in the chief's house and the chief will sort it out. The point I'm making is that the Roman Dutch law that they brought, because they came for property. That is why they came. First, they came for human beings as property. Then after that, they came for our physical resources also as property. So their interest is essentially is about property, whether it is your gold, your mineral, your oil, whatever it is. That is what imperialism, colonialism, and neocolonialism is about. And so their laws, which is the Roman Dutch law, as they called it, is essentially a law that governs property. In England here, they lock people up over stealing 1 penny, steal 1 penny, they'll lock you up. That is how ruthless the system was. And then when they fill the prisons with so many people, they didn't have anywhere to then store them. What did they do? They ship them to a country called Australia.
Yeah.
So I'm essentially saying that the Roman Dutch law, the English law, is essentially a law about property. And that law is what they brought. So it's unfortunate, as I said, that our brothers and sisters in Lesotho are not developing that. But then it's the same in Ghana. In Ghana Law School is the law school. That's it. The Ghana Law is the law school. There is no other law school in Ghana that I know of. If you want to do law in Ghana, you can only go to the Ghana Law School. And if you go to Ghana Law School, what do you learn? You learn about the same kind of law, Roman Dutch law, Roman English law. That's what you learn.
Okay. Thank you. Comrade Pigbin.
Yeah, greetings. Can you hear me?
We can hear you very well. Go ahead, brother.
Thank you for this opportunity, and I would like also to welcome members once again to also. These are of course a combined class of CSG and farmers of third class, and I would like to invite all of them to this class. Of course, I would like to appreciate also the presence of Brother Kwame, who is our chair and has also given something in regards to this. I've been trying to do some little research in regards to this. I went first of all to check what is a common law. And what I learned is that the common law is the body of customary law based upon judicial decisions and the body in reports of decided cases that has been administered by the common law courts of England since the Middle Ages. So that's what basically I'm trying to get to be part of common law. Now I get back to Kenyan context. I get back to Kenyan context and realize that I was trying to do analysis whether Kenya practice common law, customary law. And when I went to the definition of customary law, of course, there's a paper I've come across that I'll try to share on the reports of the customary law. I would download it and I'll share with you. Then I realized, yes, it is practiced, but also in some extent. Basically, the practice of customary law in Kenya is basically measured on what you call the marriage, basically on marriage side. Because you see, we have marriage in traditional marriages. So the Kenyan constitution do recognize traditional marriage as part of marriages. So we have three types of marriages. We have the civil marriage, there's traditional marriage, and there's also either Hinduism or whatever church marriage. So traditional marriage is recognized by law, and once you marry traditionally, either by paying dowry or anything else, you should be given a certificate of marriage. And that certificate is a valid certificate that you can use anywhere. So that's a bit recognition of course, customary law. But as Brother Kwame has said, I've gone also through some history. When the white man came and found that Africans were using customary law, that was actually protecting the property, the land, the property. What they did is to find a way on how they could do away with that customary law. And you see, they realized in an extent of bringing what you call a title deed, so that they give you a title to show that you own the land. And in that process, they gave themselves titles to our land. And that's how they started to intermingle with their property, as you said. So they made property be the basics of how they could enter and actually confuse our customary laws. And in our customary laws, there was no such issues as either title deed for your property because the land was belonging to everybody. And I remember how even we shared the playing ground, the grazing ground, and even the farming grounds. They were all having traditional ways on how to do it. It was upon either the chiefs or the so-called the leaders of the society, either in the family level or even a clan level. It was especially in clan level, where we had the council of elders, but the clan system, where the clan could decide how they share their properties. Like even today, it's still being practiced. My father or my grandfather died before passing the land to my father. And my father had to call a meeting with his brothers in the presence of course, a chief. And they decided to divide their own land in their own way. So they make their own mark that this one goes to my brother, this one goes to the second brother, and this one belongs to me. And there has been, of course, sharing of this inherited land to us. So it means that it was formal. And look about dispute resolution. I know Kenyan courts have actually opted nowadays what we call alternative dispute resolution mechanism. When they talk of alternative dispute resolution mechanism, they have realized that the common judiciary or legal mechanisms or court processes of dispute resolution is very slow and very expensive. So you realize that there was a quote, they said that justice delayed is justice denied. So the Kenyan system have found a way on how they can accept alternative means. And this alternative means goes back to more of customary means on how disputes can be resolved without penning or bringing them to court so that they can be penning there. They also claim that the prisons are, of course, so full with so many judgments that come from those decisions. In our customary level, I don't think there were those big prisons where somebody could be fined to go to a prison, but rather there were punishments, because I've seen in our chief's level in my village, when somebody commits offense, maybe like, I remember sometimes back, my uncle, who is last born to my father's family, when my father was not within the home, we were working on the tea farms. So my mother was at home alone, my first mother. Then my uncle actually violated my first mother. He fought my first mother. And when the case was taken to the chief, he was given a punishment to climb on a tree that was having thorns. First of all, he had to climb on that tree from down to up. Then he was given a punishment to ensure that he would be serving and cleaning the community roads, you see. So there were no prisons, but there was a way how we instill discipline within our societies, you see. And it was more cheaper than now the process of taking a case in court. So I believe that actually adapting the customary systems in guard of even in dispute resolutions can actually save a lot of the resources or the money we waste in court processes, the time it takes to order to get those justice in the so-called court systems, and even the rulings of those court systems are made on which laws? On the common laws of England that are made to pass punishment to us in Africa. So we are still being punished by the white man's law, which should not be the case. And even the offenses are defined on a white man angle based on the white man law. So it becomes offense in that, you see. So I think there's a way and a need to go back to what you call the customary laws, because it might actually save the cost, the time, and fooling our people in the whole prisons. You see, the prison concept, I don't think is an African concept, because why should you fill prisons with over 100,000 Africans who sleep there and waiting to be fed by the nation, you see? I think prisons be served like cages or slavery dominions or underground, whatever, where people are held. But I have also got across maybe why should we actually, when Brother Kwame and us were talking about the Pan-African Constitution, I think it should just be a Pan-African, not even a Pan-African, customary law of Africa instead of a Pan-African Constitution. Just be a customary law of Africa where they will be guided with what was our customary laws, you see. So I really feel that at the center of this discussion is the property that actually Brother Kwame is saying. And the common law came for property, nothing else, for property. And he has said for us to be property and slaves of their system, and for our land also to be their property. And that's why there is no even serious justification on how this thing should be done. But I believe we need to go back to customary laws. And it's the traditional law and the African law. They call it tradition, but it's the African law. So that's my clear input a bit. But I know, of course, as I've said, marriage in Kenya is done through customary law. The government recognizes that. Dispute resolutions, now the judicial system are also recognizing what you call the alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. So they are centered within the chiefdoms or the chief camps, where we have a chief, and every Friday there's a baraza. My father is a village elder. So when there's any dispute within the marriage disputes or the community disputes, the disputing parties could come to our home. My father could listen to the case, and he could make an agreement, then send that agreement to the chief for confirmation that this is what we agreed on the dispute between this family and this family, and that's how it ends. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, brother. Interesting. And you touch about stuff which we all know. We had other systems that dealt with punishing those who committed crime within our societies. It isn't that we were uncivilized. We were civilized. That is what is important. And we cared for our own. We cared for our own. The laws were made there to ensure that we protected the familial relationships that we already had. So property was included in that as well. The way we dealt with property in Lesotho was the land belonged to the people, but the chiefs were custodians of that land. So it will be the chiefs parceling out who owns what land for some of those lands which they own. I mean, every family will have their own land, but there will be some excess land held by the chief in custody or for the people, because the people will also have to play a part in planting some of those the chief's fields. So that is how it worked. It worked harmoniously. People did do some work. And it's funny because there is a story about Mushweshwe that I heard from one of our old professors. So our old king, the first king, he decided to divorce some of his wives because the missionaries had told him to do that. The people were very unhappy with that. They said, no, we don't understand what you're doing here now. What's happening? So they said, these women have converted to Christianity and now they want out of this marriage. And Mushoshu himself, the way he was, he said, I know this system is going to be hard to implement of monogamy, but it makes sense. I don't understand why we expect women to be married by one man when we don't really agree for one woman to be married to several men. So that was the story. But when he had divorced those wives, or he had agreed to their divorce from him, the people who used to plant the fields, used to help with the fields, they said, no, we are not doing these fields now. They are no longer your wives now. They are no longer the queens, are they? They're no longer the chief's wives. And he didn't argue with them. But what Mushosho did was he took his hoe and went and did the work on the fields. So these men, being embarrassed to see their chief, their king actually using the hoe and working, they had to go and do the work. But that is how it was. We had established laws on how we do things, how we control the family life, how the young ones go through the system, the initiation schools through which we taught our young how they transition from being adolescents into women and men for the future. But what is important is that the way we did things, our education was integrated. We did not say, here is the law, or we said, okay, here is economics, or here is the maths. Everything was all together. You got the rounded education which set us for the future. So this is where the law also meets education. It means the economy, it means the society, the future of the society is the one thing which I know the Western system, we lack specialization. We like specialization, but it's important to also keep in touch with who we are. If we are to renew or restore our Africanness, we need to know how we used to do things.
Brother
Go ahead.
Koku,
Go
If
ahead,
you
Brad.
don't mind me coming in, you see, Brother Coco, you are essentially saying that the system that was perfect, that harmonious, it was perfect for us, and so on. See, as Brother Pigeon has explained, because he narrated the brief history in Kenyan sense, because you know that your part of the world is which is the part that suffered most from this theft of property, theft of land. West Africa was spared. We were spared a lot of this. Some say it's because of the heat and the mosquito. But your part of the world, um, from Congo down, is very beautiful land. The temperature is someplace like Europe, so they really went for your land, and there's a reason for that. Now, you see, in my humble opinion, saying that the laws we had, the way we were doing things was excellent, was good, let's return to them, fails to acknowledge. I'm not saying you are saying that, but I'm just saying that it fails to acknowledge the current reality. The reality today is that we are faced with neocolonialism. Neocolonialism essentially is a system that appropriates property, right? It's the business, it is in the business of appropriating property in different ways, which I'm sure you are aware of. So for instance, one way would be to say that the state should go and borrow money. Let's go to the state, whether it's a Lesotho state, South African state, Ghana state, doesn't matter. Your colonial state borrows money.
Mhm.
Your colonial state then has to pay back that money. The interest on that money is such that you'll probably be paying it for the next 1,000 years or whatever.
Yes.
That is one way of appropriating our property. The systems are different and so many. I mean, we can have a class on that. I mean, one of them, for instance, is how they price things that are coming to us. The 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 whole the whole uh, neo-colonial multinational corporations, the way they work, and the reason they are multinational is that they change prices between nations. They underprice things that are coming here. They raise the prices over there, and they manipulate the prices and costs within the multinational corporation so that at the end of the day, they cream up all the profits. I'm just using that as another example of the appropriation of property. So at the end of the day, neocolonialism is about the appropriation of our property. Now, when they came, we did not have a system of land ownership. It didn't mean we didn't have land ownership. We had land ownership, but there was no, if you like, written or formal system that you could enforce. That you could enforce because you had a state that could enforce it. So all they did, from what brother uh, Pigeon has said, is that look, they just said, okay, if this land is yours, bring your title deed, and we had no title deeds. You understand? And so we had no title deed system, and today, as we speak, chiefs are still selling land, and the land that the chiefs sell are sold to 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and people are fighting over the same piece of land because there's no title deed system. So I'm just trying to say, brother Coco, that I don't think that the problem has been solved. Now, the problem will have to be solved by our legal people who we have sent to school, go and read law and come back and help us solve the system. And from what we heard from the brother in Lesotho, they are even ashamed to be associated with the customary law, which is a system you have just explained that you are saying was perfect. That our people are not associated with it. You see, so I think that going forward, we need to acknowledge that that system didn't work. It didn't work for us because it did not make property ownership clear enough. If the people own the property, then there must be a title deed that says that the people own the property. We didn't have that. So the British came, 3,000 British citizens, 3,000 owned at least a quarter of Kenya, just like that.
Mhm.
And that quarter of Kenya they owned, guess what? Were the best land, the most fertile land, the most fertile part of Kenya is what they appropriated for themselves based on this colonial property system. They just appropriated it. 3,000 Kenyans, British citizens, took the land, a quarter of Kenya, just like that, because of this system. So I'm just trying to say that we need to acknowledge that those systems that allow that to happen we're not good. They didn't work for us. And it wasn't because the land the laws in Ghana were good that it didn't happen. In Ghana, what happened was different. But the reason they didn't appropriate the lands there are not because we had better systems. You understand? So in short, I think you need to acknowledge that the system we had and still do is not good. The chiefs who sell land, there is no written proper documentation of the sale of land in any chief's palace that I know of. That I know of. There's no proper documentation, that you can show for the ownership and the transfer of land from 500 years ago or 600 years ago or 100 years ago. It doesn't exist. And that is not good enough. So I think we need to acknowledge that and find a solution to that. See? Because right now, as we speak, in Ghana, for instance, the law is that anywhere where minerals are found belongs to the state. Anywhere where you find minerals, resources, like diamonds, oil, and so on, as soon as resources are found in a particular land, that land belongs to the state. But guess what? That state is a new colonial state. Who controls a new colonial state? Is imperialists. So essentially, we are saying that property belongs to them. So we need to solve this problem. That's what I'm trying to say. This problem needs to be solved. And it's not good us saying that the system we had was good, the land belonged to the people, and it was so excellent. And brother, we've been overtaken by events. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I won't respond to you so that we don't have a conversation between the two of us. But let me take
That's fine.
What Carrington has to say.
Actually, I'm so sorry. I wanted to respond to.
Go ahead, brother. That way is better.
It's just a question. Were our property rights, were the property rights of our ancestors violated because they did not have a title deed or because they didn't have weapons and a military? So what was the issue here? Yeah.
Do you want to respond to that, Comrade Kwame? Because
both. I would say both. That's why I said that when we say title deed, it is not necessarily a paper. Yeah, it's not necessarily a paper, but the thing with the difference between our traditional societies and modern civil society is that everything is documented. If I go to Lesotho and I say that Brother Koko's land is mine, Brother Koko can prove that the land is his and that is not mine by producing some kind of documentation. Yeah, which will show that from this part of the land to that part of the land belongs to Bra Koko, and that document will prove it. And if a tree was the landmark and that tree is not there, Yeah, if that tree disappears, if a tree is the land when the tree disappears, it will be hard to prove that that was a boundary or whatever. Yeah, but if it is properly documented in terms of the way that modern systems document property, you know, in terms of longitudes and latitudes, you know, even if that tree disappears, it doesn't matter because we still know. So, brother, the answer to your question is that even where you have property, even where you have title deeds, if you're not strong enough, if you're not powerful enough to defend it, someone more powerful than you can come and take it away from you. An example that we have, which we are all aware of, which is happening right in front of us, is Palestine. Palestinians had title deeds, but when the refugees came, you know, over the course of time, those who had the title deeds lost their lands. You know, they lost their properties and so on. So having the title deed alone, Brother Current, is not enough. You also have to be able to what? To defend your property. In our case, we didn't have both.
Thank you.
I beg to digress on that one. What Kwame is advocating is actually anyone can go into any land if they are powerful enough, they can take away the land, which is exactly what the Americans did in America. The current European Americans did in America, and did wiped out the Native Americans there. That is genocide to me. It's just that the international law or the arrangement, the systems which protects nations was also undeveloped or still in a very rudimentary way. That's why it wasn't able to protect those people. But in Africa, what happened? I'll give you the case of Congo, Brazza. Brazza was a Frenchman. He went to the Makoko of the Bateke people in Congo and made him sign some fraudulent paper, which he didn't know he was signing off his land. And in the end, he signed off the title deed to the land. In short, they did have their institutions. Africans had their institutions which were recognized by the Africans. But the foreigners came in, and those systems, they didn't recognize them. So I don't think it's a fault of the Africans that the foreigners did not recognize whatever mechanisms or institutions they had in place. Even if they had written these things down, it says they could have taken their lands. It's the same as we just said in Palestine. Palestine was ruled by the Ottomans. When the Ottoman Empire fell, the British came. The British and the French actually negotiated this without involving the Palestinians themselves about giving away the land to the Zionist movement, which was based in England, based in the United States. Not the Jews who were living there. The Jews were already living there. But because they had power and they thought the Zionists had more financial muscle and more political clout to help them win the war in the First World War, then they decided to give them the title deed to Palestine's land. And this is where we are today, because someone can decide to up one day because they have more power and decide to give people land belonging to other people. It is what it is in Palestine. But that means we need something that works, an international system that's recognized throughout the world. And I think it's more or less the same in my country when we did the what do you call them? The current title deeds. People had to go from house to house doing those the surveyors. Surveyors had to do that to make sure the system was organized properly, but documenting it this time. But before that, there was a way it happened, and it was recognized within the court of law of the country at the time. So I think what you're asking there, Carrington, is there is a national system or a system within the clans, but then there is also a supranational system which also has to be recognized. And in this case, it did not protect the people. It was more of who has power, who has more weapons, who has stronger weapons. And that is how Africa lost most of their land. Because even in the case of Mushasha had a lot of land, which is the most fertile province now in South Africa. But the Africans, Cape Town, they took that. But the Afrikaners themselves, they lost what they had in Cape Town, which they had already stole from the original people of Cape Town. They lost that to the British as well, because they didn't want the British ruling them. They desired to move inland to get that. But coming in there is how much firepower they had. Even Mujojo said, okay, that's my land. You can graze your animals and then move on. They decided to stay on. So even if Mujojo had title deed, as Brother Kwame is saying, it didn't matter. It's who had more firepower. Brother Pickpin. Oh yeah, brother Clyde. Yeah, Clyde, come on. I see you, Galactic Clyde. Before Pickpin.
Yes. Greetings. How are you?
We're good. How are you, brother?
Yes, good. My screen is a little bit thin because of the plastic on it, so the colors may show in a little bit funny.
Don't worry, we can hear you. As we hear you,
yes,
that's fine.
I like the conversation. It's interesting. Which brings me back to some information I read about different aspects of the land on the continent. But in touching what you were saying about the Native American, at that time there was no United Nation or anything to protect them from the onslaught of the takeover from their land. And I don't know, based on the history, our people also were ruling aspects of America. So there was a bit of a different trade-off that went on. So, but as far as I understand with land, going back to the book Facing Mount Kenya, about the Gikuyu people, where Jomo Kenyatta wrote about, it's explaining details how a land is being magically allocated. So when the land is given or been trade off to a particular family, there's a certain magical ritual that is set to protect the boundary. Is explained that in the book Facing Mount Kenya. And I thought it was very deep because it shows that if anybody tamper with those boundaries, it's also incur a curse because of the ritual that is done to protect the land. Then I read in the book about Zimbabwe, we call what's the book called? The book on Zimbabwe, Guns and Reins. And in there it talks about the land. And I think it's the same thing throughout Africa, that the land was actually each area had an area chief. Like for instance, we talk about Harare or we talk about Masuya Twinya. They would have an area chief that governs the whole area, and everything, the distribution of land or whatever would go to the chief, because what this is, everything belongs to the ancestors as far as the ancient ways. And everything is allocated to the chief who worked to the ancestors. And I think when they get rid of our sacred systems, such as the chiefdoms and the spiritual leaders, I think that's where, and follow the Western ways, I think that's where things went corrupt in that sense. But I think, I think we still need to find out about all the different systems in Africa that we had in place, to research and then see what's more allocate or viable for what we can use and refuse, in that sense of what more appropriate for us. And I think some of it may come to the chieftain system in connection with the ancestors, as long as it's faithful. Because the ancient Egyptians says that the kings are the last of the gods and the first of the men. Meaning when somebody ascends the throne as a king or a queen, they represent the last aspect of the Godhead. In terms of they're representing the Godhead, but as the last of the gods, but the first of the men. Meaning they're the higher than the reign of men or women, because they're representing the deity. And so I find Guns and Reigns is a very deep book in terms of understanding some of the sacredness in connection to Africa. I think it was written by a European, and I'm not sure where a lot of the information, I think a lot of the information came from the chiefdom and things like that. But yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to shed some light on some of that information. Thanks anyway.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah,
we will look at it, and we will. I mean, you have put in very important points, which I think we should take up, including looking at how things are done in different countries in Africa, because that is what is actually needed. We need an unique African system that works for Africa. Brother Pigpin.
thanks.
And Sister Myla.
Thank you. I've been trying to do some research about that, but I appreciate this. Now, I tend to go back to one question. Who are the people? When you say the land belongs to the people, who are the people? Like you tell me today in Lesotho, the land in Lesotho belongs to who? The Basotho?
The Basotho people.
Now, when did it belong to the Basotho people? Because there was a territory lined by their colonial master drawing Lesotho. So only that territory which was drawn by a colonial master during scramble and partition is what belongs to Basotho people. And that anything beyond that do not belong to them.
No.
That's a very critical question. It's not even a question to answer, but it's a provocative question to our minds. For example, somebody will say land in territory of Kenya belongs to Kenyans. So it belongs to Kenya because it was scrapped within the territorial colonial boundaries to say this is now Kenya. And that's why we are having fights today in Congo and Rwanda, where some people claim that this land is for Congolese and this land is for Rwandese. So when did it become the Congolese? The land belongs to the people. And in that definition of the people, it did not specify which people. It did not say that the land belongs to the people of Kenya or the black people or whatever. As of course, what Brother Glory used to say, Brother Kwame do say, and if you run the history of human existence, the first human being is an African. So the land belongs to Africa. Anywhere, you see, and that's why Malema do say that I cannot chase away my fellow black people who want to come to South Africa because you're saying they're not South Africans. What made them not to be South Africans? You see? And I think we need to transcend beyond that. And that's why our customary view of land was not that this land belonged to them. That's why they did not give title deed to somebody. Anybody who needed land to cultivate could cultivate within the community, you see? But when now we decided to come in with this white man mentality of even title deed within the smallest unit possible, then you move to title dealing a country, scam something like a country, but now you bring the wars. That's why there have been always inter-community tribal wars, whereby this community want to access this grazing land, like what goes on in Kenya, where some community, where we have serious cattle rustling for historical cattle rustling, where this community want to graze their animal in this community, in this land, then this community stop them from doing that. What happens now? They fight. So the land was free in customary system. It was land for the people. And anybody who had anything to use to the land was having a right to do so. The Maasai community in Kenya, for example, are pastoralists. So they move with their animals all over. They call them nomads. They move with their lands all over. So can you kill a Maasai animal because it has crossed over your land? What made it your land? It happened sometimes back between Kenya and Tanzania, where Tanzania decided to kill our animals, the Maasai animals, because they were saying those animals. So an animal was having a title deed to be a Kenyan animal or a citizenship of a Kenyan animal and a Tanzanian animal. So I think if we move beyond that aspect and start to answer the question, the land belongs to who? To the people. Who are the people? Because if you go again, even in the history of migrations, as you said, when the Arabs attacked us from the where we call the Thebes in around Ethiopia, where it was said where the migration started from. You still realize even in our records today, there are people who are being said are are the traditional or the origin aborigines of that land. For example, if you go to maybe Lesotho, like in Kenya, there are community called the Ogiek community and the Khoisan and the Khoikhoi community, who are believed to be the aborigines. If you go to US, you know they are the aborigines. So before this community, which is claimed to have killed the aborigines and pushed them to get a space for land, so who should claim the ownership of that land? Is it the aborigines that were pushed away, or this community that came over, push aborigines and got access to that land, now claim that land belongs to them? You see? And that's why, in order to solve whose ownership land belongs to, the land belongs to the people. And that people did not say the aborigines, the Kikuyu, the Luo, the Africans, the whatever. The land was belonging to the people. And an African man, of course, as being the first man, as we say, had access to the whole land. And therefore, when this selfishness now came that now this land not belong to the people anymore, it belongs to Coco, it belongs now to Basotho, it belongs now to Pidgin. It will now create that selfishness and what we call now egocentrism. So everybody wanted now to amass a lot to belong to him. You see, the same book quoted here, that Jomo Kenyatta facing Mount Kenya, when it talks of the rituals of the land, now there's over 500,000 hectares of land in Kenya that belongs now to Jomo Kenyatta. The land was belonging to a community, but now when you start bringing egocentrism and selfishness of dividing this land, now there's somebody who has the might. The white man had the might, as Brother Kwame has said, and they came over 100 of them and took over almost a half of Kenya that belonged to them. Now the Africans, again, now with their own might, if you have money or you have resources, now you also amass the land. Now it belongs to you. Then now we have people who have no ability to fight, and they're Africans, are now squatters in their so-called countries. Squatters, they don't have any land or anywhere to sleep at. And they'll be told, you don't have a right to that. But they have a right to ownership of land, you see. So I think if we go deep to start from the genesis, the land belonged to the people. And therefore it was a free land for anybody. There was no boundary that Coco today, if you want to settle somewhere and have a space somewhere to build or have a shelter on your head, somebody will chase you. There was nothing like that. So it was an open land. But today, can you move your property and go settle somewhere? And you say this land belongs to the people. They will kill you for that. Now, where did this person get a right to kill you over land that he never came with? Nobody came with his own land in this other universe. Nobody's going to walk away with any land over this universe, that you carry your land on your grave and go with it. So who told you that that land belongs to you? Who gave you that right that that land belongs to you? A paper that was signed somewhere? Who told Kenyans that this land now belongs to Kenyans? Eh? And that Uganda who cross over, like what we have now, we have a fight within the Marines, the Lake Victoria. There are those, my brothers from the other side. Of course, we come from the lake side. We are so-called River Lake Nailers. So what we do is actually fishing. So my brothers do cross over within the lake to fish in what is called Uganda territory. And Uganda police officer will arrest them and detain them there and telling them that they have passed the sea borders and fishing the fish that belong to Uganda. So even fish has citizenship, that a fish now is a Ugandan fish and a Kenyan fish. So you see, all these things are actually going to be very serious problems to us until we take to a mentality that the land belongs to the people. And we accept that aspect, that land belongs to the people. Then we will not have the war that now the Basotho says that we want to extend the boundary. The South Africans are saying now this land of Basotho should belong to us. Nobody has a right to that. Any human being who is a person has a right to access to land and use the land. That's what I'm trying to get into as we are trying to see the effect of now the land ownership. Brother Kwame said that we never had the mechanisms to fight, either the weapons, and we never had the title deeds. Now today we have Africans who have the mechanisms to fight you. They are the politicians, they are the chief, they are the elders in your community, they are the landed people. They can come and buy your own land and have it for their own, doing nothing. Then you remain as a squatter in your family without even something to put on your shelter on. Then they will own lands that animals are resting on. Over 13 million acres in Africa was belonging to Queen. So Queen came over to Kenya and took 13 million acres of land to her. And she has a title claiming that that land belonged to her. So did she carry the land from England to Kenya that made it belong to her? Or did the so-called God assigned her as a queen that this land belongs to you? And when she decided, he said, when she decided to share 1 million acre of that land, it went to who? The Jomo Kenyatta, the first politicians, took over that 1 million acres instead of giving to the community. Today, we have land that are being controlled by the multinationals, the Finlay's tea companies and Unilever tea companies in Kenya. Their lease agreement was supposed to be over. Now, when the land was supposed to be handed over to the community, do you know who comes in? The politicians who have the money to buy the land. So the people still are squatters. So how do you tell that? Thank you.
Very good questions. very good questions. I'm not going to attempt to answer them. I know they're rhetoric, but some of them, they make sense. So just a brief history of how we spread all the way down south. A chief has sons. And when he bequeaths whatever his throne, he bequeaths it to the eldest son. And what happens to the other sons? The other sons take up whatever they have, take followers, and they move on. That is how we ended up where we are. People have moved from one area to the other and spread throughout all of Africa. So when I was saying that the land belonged to the people in Lesotho, I made it clear that some of the land the chief held in trust, did not use it for people who came in and needed fields to plant, fields to cultivate. But with regards to the cattle grazing, that we know that has been a long one. It's a very controversial one. It has been going on for a while, and those are very good questions that you're asking about the cattle, about the fish, about all of that. It all boils down to how do we decide to share our property? How do we decide to share Africa and make sure everyone has access to land and resources? Because the land and the resources on that land, they belong to the people. Thank you. Sister Myra, you had a question. You had a hand up.
I was just wondering about something that came up for me, but then I think what Brother Kwame voiced kind of answered a lot of what I was thinking about. Because my question was, given neocolonialism that brought this system of ownership and profit off of land, how do we even go back to the way it was? Because in Uganda, land is it's a very hot potato. People get killed over land disputes. Everyone wants to own some land. It's a big business. So how do you then come into a society like that and say, we used to do it like this? How you won't survive the night. You might even get shot on the way home. So then Brother Kwame said, what we need is people that can do research and thinkers that can maybe suggest ways of making it, I don't know, as near as possible to the way it was, but it can't be. But at the same time, thinking about the modern situation and the current situation as it is, the reality as it is, that we are now in 2023, 21st century, and still under neocolonialism. And this is people's ways of thinking have changed. So now what do we do? So I think in developing custom law, that also the reality has to be taken into consideration, is what I'm thinking. And then Brother Kokoi also said that we need an international system that works throughout the world. And then you gave an example of how in America, the people they had their lands taken, but there was no, let's say, international body to help. But to me, again, these international bodies that we run to, especially as Africans, we love running to the ICC, we love running to the UN. But we shouldn't forget that those bodies are created by the imperialists. And actually, those bodies are there to just help the imperialists progress their interests. They're not really for us. Brother Kwame said we need to be able to defend our land if we are thinking of a new system, because the Palestinians also had title deeds, but that didn't help them. So maybe we need to build institutes that are African, that will defend our land as African land before we think about these institutes that were created by the imperialists for their interests. Let's also create our own institutes for our own interests, for our own ways of thinking and being. Thank you.
let's not have that much confidence in whatever exists of international systems right now. Determine what is right for us, look at the laws that we have, look at our current situation, and look at where we were before, and take into account the property nature of things, the way we are doing it now, and protect our property. Protect our property. Because I think the biggest weakness that we had as Africans was we were very accommodative. We treated guests as guests in our own homes. But in the end, the guests turned around and took whatever they wanted to take and decided it was theirs. And that's what's feeding new colonialism to date. Because they continue to profit on what belongs to the Africans at the expense of the Africans. It makes sense what you're saying and ties well with what Akwame has been saying, and also ties with what Clyde has said. Thank you all. I haven't heard from Sister Ida or Brother Jason Clark. Do you want to come?
Sorry, did you call my name?
Yes, Sister Ida. What do you want to say about this, about the law, customary law, or the land, or whatever you want to say about it?
I'm afraid I came in a bit late, so I don't really. I heard what Brother Pigeon had to say about how far do you go back for who the land belongs to. But I think that if there were Aboriginal people about before colonial days, the land should belong to them and to their people rather than anyone since colonial times. So, and when I say Aboriginal, I consider that whether it's Africans there or whether it's Aboriginals in Australia, it's all still original. So I think that's how I would define it. Am I in line with what you've been talking about?
You are. Everyone has their say. Everyone has their thinking. Again,
okay, it's just I wasn't there right at the very beginning, so I'm picking up from what Brother Pigeon has said.
That's
Sorry.
right. You will hear what the beginning was about. It was about customary law versus the common law, which is mostly the Roman Dutch law, which we inherited.
And I hear it's been recorded, so at some point I will look at it.
Thank you very much.
I'm really pleased to hear that.
Yeah. So the other one is our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. Their forefathers were taken forcefully from our land, from their land. How do we treat that? Another, the ACUP, the African Continental Unity Party, is saying they have to come back and they have to be given the land. So that has to be a law that we as Africans work on, because they need to be compensated for what belongs to them.
Brother Coco.
Go ahead.
And let me do a follow-up on that and what the side has raised before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, taking in context of our diaspora brothers, mm-hmm. especially those in Caribbeans, those who went to the Caribbean, who is the owner of that Caribbean land? Who owns that Caribbean land now? Or who was the owner of that Caribbean land? And will you be rightful to take them away from Caribbean and tell them, if you're not African, tell them that we are getting you out of here, this land does not belong to you, it belongs to who? That was the first question it was. And that's why I said, if we take the universalism that the land belongs to the people, and people is a human being, you see? Because, for example, our brothers are now in Haiti, in Grenada, and in Trinidad, and those other parts. Will you tell them that that land not belongs to them? Of course, they were taken from Africa, but they went there. The same way you talk of migration. We moved from somewhere. We were not where we are today. There's somewhere we moved from. Either we moved from up in the what you're saying during the movement and the migrations. So it means you migrated from somewhere. You either not migrated peacefully, but you must also realize that when Africans started their migration, it was either out of war and people with might came to attack communities. Others moved out of population because the area was so populated and therefore they were looking for somewhere at rest. But if you check what, of course, Henry de Klerk refers or is Chancellor Williams in The Destruction of Black Civilization, you realize that some people were moved out of war. So they decided to move down. And when they were moving either down or Ghana or Africa or East Africa, they also found some people there whom they were displacing out of might. So it was the war of who is mightier to take over who. Then over a period of time, you settle where you are. So we can also say that either where we settle currently, we were moved by force of where we were within the Africa. We were either migrated from where we were originally to where we are currently within Africa. So the brothers who are in the Caribbean, it is rightful, and I still hold onto it, that it's their right to come back to Africa and they be given the land to Africa. But does it mean that the only land that Africans should occupy is only Africa? And therefore that them who are in the Trinidad and the Tobago should leave that land to who? Should they leave it to a white man, or to who will they leave that land to as they come back to Africa? You see? Who will they leave that land to? And who has that ownership of that land where they are currently? And you want to say that they are not legal owners of the land? Because if they were migrated, either forcefully through transatlantic trade, in the same way we within the continent were also migrated, either in war or in adventure or in any other way until we settled to Lesotho down there. Some of us just got tired and settled in Kenya here without moving down. So how do you sort some of these issues? And when Sister Ida talk of the land should be given to Aborigines, those are the tradition. Everywhere you'll hear the Aborigines, the Khoisans, you know the Khoisans, and the Khoikhoi, you know some of them in the history of Africa. Now these Aborigines, if the land was actually to be on peace, that when the other community were moving, the Aborigines were to sit down and say, okay, you, the new neighbors who have come in, we say some white people were not good neighbors who came in, we welcome them, but they turned out to take our land instead of actually settling as neighbors. Now we also Africans who moved from wherever we moved to and found Aborigines somewhere, we were welcomed by the Aborigines, but we never behaved as also visitors. We decided now to rule over Aborigines, kill them, depopulate them, and take over them. And that's why today, if you check the natives Aborigines, even in Africa, they are very minute. Their number is very limited. What have we done to them? It's the same thing some white men came to Africa, also did to us, when they decided to take our white land and push us somewhere. So when you go to that histories again, today you are not, of course, maybe an Aborigine. So will your ownership of Lesotho land will be just by Aborigines, whom you actually eliminated some years ago, and whom now even the consideration of leadership is not given unto them. So that's why I say we need to focus clearly to see how do you sort the origin of the land. Because if you talk of ownership, where you settled, who was there before? Your grandfather or your great-great-grandfather, how did he occupy that place where you were before? You see? And when you talk of the history of evolution, as they say the cradle of Africa was the cradle of mankind, as mankind was moving up. Can we say that the Europeans who move up to where they move, they are still Africans, who are the descendants of Africans? And where they are there still is a property of their own main descendants, the grandfathers. And we can go back there and still occupy the same land as the Moors were occupying the upper side of Europe. And then they were sent away. So can you go back and occupy that Europe? Because it's also land that was belonging either to Moors. And where we were moving, were we finding animals or people? Were the only animals living there that were only conquering animals and not people? If we're conquering people, what was the rights of those people? So these are still also lots of questions in this conversation. Thank you. Richard, you're muted.
Thank you. I see lots of hands who want to answer you or maybe come up with their own comments. I haven't heard from you for a while. Currently, you want to come in, followed by Clyde and then Sister Ida.
Thank you very much. I think Brother Pigbin has raised very, very important issues. My personal perspective on our brothers and sisters from the diaspora, but Sister Ida and Brother Galactic Clyde will speak for themselves, is that there ought to be a system of voluntary repatriation. I think anyone who wants or feels or needs to come back to Africa, every effort should be made by modern African governments to make sure that the repatriation process is as easy and as painless as possible. Okay? If there is a possibility, for example, there are situations in Ghana, I think tentative situations, but Elder Christian will speak to that, of possibly giving them pieces of land that are fallow, that should be facilitated. I think the diaspora has property rights in Africa. This is very clear. To the question of Europe and Europeans and the interaction of tribes in Africa, I would just like to add to the idea that the scale of Bantu and River Lake Nilot expansion was massive. It was effectively the first interaction between two different civilizations on the continent, the Niger-Congo civilization, the Bantu civilization, and the Aboriginal Khoikhoi and San civilizations, and small communities remain in Congo, Tanzania, and Southern Africa. It is clear from sort of inference, you can infer from cultural interactions that violence was not the only logic here. Violence and pushing out was not the only logic of the interaction here. For example, I'd give to the group the consideration of the Xhosa community in South Africa. They speak in click languages. So there are very few, and I would assure you, there are very few English people who speak Swahili, because it has never occurred to them that they need to speak Swahili even to function in Kenya. They have their own British systems, British schools. So it is clear that the interaction here was not a logic simply of violence. Now, however, my brother from Kenya has raised a very, very important point. Given all these issues, how do we apportion and divide property rights? And I'm sorry, I should also point out to the group that we have reduced the entire constitutional law to property rights over land. There are a lot of sophisticated things that we need to consider, but I think it's a good place to start. Land is a good place to start. Do we tie it to productivity? Do we tie it to voluntarism? Do we tie it to ethnicity? Do we tie it? How exactly do we operationalize the principles of Ubuntu? How do we exactly operationalize these things? And I think I take my guidance here from Chinua Achebe. So Chinua Achebe speaks of Okonkwo, yes? Okonkwo is a hardworking young man who comes from a poor family because the father is lazy. But Okonkwo himself is strong, intelligent, and hardworking. So the community itself, the clan, the village notices that this is a talented young individual. So it invests in the talented young individual. And Okonkwo in his 30s and 40s ends up being a wealthy man and creating value for the society. Could a much more, I'm not a legal person, as you can tell, could a much more sophisticated system of this nature be used to apportion capital, land, financial resources to talent rather than connections? Can we find a system of doing this on the basis of Ubuntu board? So thank you all very much.
Well done. Thank you. Good questions again, and good contributions. Clyde?
Yes, greetings. I'm back in connection to what the brother was just saying about the diaspora and land allocation. I think we have to understand, if we talk about land allocation for the diaspora, not the majority of the diasporas are not going to be looking to relocate to Africa and leave whatever land or area they have. But there's a lot of people who are very much conscious of their connection with the continent and African people that would love to come to the continent, and some of them would like to set up business, some of them would like to come and work and interconnected. But I think based on how the laws are set up, they don't feel, because I've known some people went to Tanzania and other places, and they've been having problems because they want to relocate, but the system is not set up in such a way for them to have access to, if they're there and want to work, there's no work permit and different things that are the problem. And so even before anything about land, because I think if there's going to be any land right for the diaspora, it should be substantial, meaning that they have to be not just you offer the land and then people may just come and take up the land and then eventually sell it off and not really relocating. So it should be based on, you know, terms and conditions, yeah, so that you don't just allocate the land and then before you know it, it gets sold off or people just hand it off to somebody else and things like that. So it should be that for people who seriously want to relocate and based on maybe after a year the land is allocated to them because they're serious or something of that nature. But more so than the land is actually the right to be able to, you know, relocate to Africa and able to fit into the society and work, whether it's work permit, get the necessary paperwork. I think the only country, to my knowledge, that actually have a welcome policy in terms of passport, I think is Ghana, or certain rights in terms of passport. I think everything else, every other country, it's you're still subject to the immigration status and as just come as a temporary and not as a citizen. So there should be some issues about citizenship for dual citizenship for the diaspora. I think we should start there before we even get into the land. You know, that's something we can deal with after. Because people always say, well, Clyde, you're not interested in getting any property or land. And I said, listen, I got good connection in the continent. And it's not about land, it's about helping our brothers and sisters develop the land that they have. Because I know a lot of our brothers and sisters have land, but it's like boreholes or development. And I think, you know, I believe that most of us in the diaspora, I think we should learn to want to interact with our brothers and sisters on the continent, not just come as a tourist and to be, you know, buying land and be separated from our people. I think we should come back as a family unit, connect with family, encourage brothers and sisters. Maybe they may have a big property that they want to help develop, or land that they want to help develop, and we can have, a business venture more so than just looking at as how tourists come in the Caribbean and they just isolate, or we come to Africa and isolate ourselves as diaspora. I think there should be an interconnection. That's my point. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome.
Solid contributions. Going back to your point, Brother Carrington, the whites in Southern Africa used the idea of migration and forceful removal of Aborigines from their land as a claim to their own land, to say they deserve that land because the Bantu will have removed the Hwe and the Abatwa. They are called the Abatwa. I think San is derogatory. So the Abatwa were removed by force from their land, as well as the Hwe people were removed by force. But as you rightly said, the Bantu came in and lived side by side with the Abatwa, as well as the Hwe people. And it's not just the language that's a distinguishing feature. The intermarriage, there was lots of intermarriage that happened between them and the Bantu people. So that migration was seamless in a way. And my chief was raised by the Abatwa. That is how well they work together. Give me a second. Sister Ida, please get on the floor. The floor is yours.
Okay. I was going to say that I think that as part of reparations, people in Africa should decide how much land they're prepared to set aside for the diasporians. So if they're prepared to give people, in America, I think it was 10 acres and a mule after slavery. And I'm not saying 10 acres for individuals in Africa, but I'm saying that as part of reparations, people should decide the amount of land, like even if it's an acre and a half, 2 acres, that they'll give to people from the diaspora to come and settle. And it doesn't necessarily become their land. I mean, it's a bit like maybe doing allotments. In allotments, you pay every year for the land, but it's very little. So you'll pay for it. If you don't work your land, you'll end up losing that land. You know, you'll be given chances to work it, or if you haven't paid for it, that's when you're more likely to lose the land. But I'm saying that people should be given plots of land either very cheaply, or else if in different parts of Africa there's so much land that they can have it free, then you decide how much land, whether the amount of acreage of land, or whether it's small or whether it's big, that people can have. I would say to Brother Pigeon that the Caribbean was settled by the Caribs, and a lot of them were wiped out. So you wouldn't be able to even find them if you went looking for them. Else, I would say, yes, it's their land. You know, if they wanted to take a part of it from different parts of the West Indies, and you can prove you were a Carib before colonial settlement, then yes, they should be able to get some of their land. And as I said yesterday, I think that there should be a certain amount of land that is given to women, even if it's the same amount as you're going to give to the people from the diaspora. But I think that, you know, all groups should be able to get some land, either very cheap, if not free. So that's what I would suggest. That okay, we can't go back to the very maybe first settlers, but we can go from before colonial days. And really, I don't see why Europeans should be having so much land in Africa. No, no, no. If you want an acre, maybe. Otherwise, get out. You know, out, out, out would be what I would say. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ida. Interesting. You had her, Pigbin. I think she tried to answer your questions, and I think Carrington also tried to answer your questions. But if you want to add some more or clarify, please come to the floor.
Yes. Sorry for being mouthy sometimes. They say speaking too much makes you so mouthy, but when you have a time to speak, sometimes it means you have a lot to speak, not your mouth, you have a lot to speak. Now, it's we are now moving to the context of course, our brothers in diaspora. But another thing we must check, I don't object that, you know, even you have a right to go back to your father. Maybe if your mother moved away with you from your father, by the time either there was family issues, you still have a right as a son to go back to your father. Mm-hmm. And when you go back, you have a right to be considered as a child of that family. And all rights entitled to that family will be entitled to you, despite of either your mother moving away with you or your mother staying there. Africans in diaspora have a right to do the same, because we know there's a record that they were moved forcefully. It's not that they were claiming, there's a records that you can actually saying that they were moved forcefully. And therefore, they don't have to be brought back also forcefully. As their brothers, we need to bring them back smoothly because they are our brothers. You see, when your brother goes away, maybe as a family, you go back to plead and seek with your brother, and in fact, search for your brother. And when you find the lost son or the prodigal son, you bring them back home. And therefore, we've searched them and we know where they are. We want to bring them back home. But the problem, even at home here, we are landless. We at home are landless. We at home don't even have an acre of land. In a country whereby some people, the same black as us, own close to 1 million acres of land, we Africans are still landless. we Africans here, even to purchase land, I know, brother, if you cook, maybe if you have one, but if you want to purchase one in Lesotho, you know how much it will cost you just to get a right to land, which means if you don't have that money, you not have land. So even as we'll be allocating some land to our brothers from the Caribbean to come back, the question is, how do we settle, first of all, even our brothers within the country who have nowhere, have no heck of land, have nothing to settle? What do you do about that, you see? Because if we don't treat our children properly, how do you want to please the neighbors? Of course, they are also our children, but how do you go for our lost prodigal sons before even we give food to the living sons in Africa today? You see? And that's what I'm saying. It is not right for Africans to still have squatters, IDPs, refugees who have nowhere, and they're Africans within Africa. And you see, in Kenya, for example, the border of Kenya and Somalia, there was a biggest refugee camp there called Dadaab and Kakuma, which was closed. The question is, how can an African be a refugee in Africa? How do you end up calling your brother who crossed from Nigeria or from Congo or from Burundi because of lack of land, put them in a camp somewhere and call them refugees, and they're your brothers and they're black Africans? Why don't you even allocate them land? Leave alone that. Now, how can the people within that same core countries are still also landless and IDPs in the same land? How do you handle that? You see? And that's why I said we should go back to the concept, first of all, who are the people that the land belongs to? The land belongs to all of us. The land belongs to Africans, if it's in Africa, and it belongs to all of us. Therefore, no matter you are so-called Burundi, Lesotho, or Tanzania, or Kenyan, wherever you land, you should get a land. But here, even if you're called Kenyan and you're in Kenya, you still don't have land. So there's a mess up, and what Matigari says, the world is upside down, and you need, first of all, to fix it in the right place, because we cannot handle a country where we have over thousands of people without land. Then some minute number of people have over half of the land in a country where only animals graze over. The squirrels and the antelopes are running over land, acres of land, and somebody in the same country. And that's what, of course, in consciousness, we've run to what you call they're either idealists or they suffer from what you call incipient solipsism, that they only think of themselves and they become non-liberal and conservatives to an extent that they don't even care that in the same village where they build a big bungalow or a big house story building, next to them there's somebody who sleeps in a polythene paper, squared somewhere without land or anything else. This is what we need to fight for. What is our Ubuntu, our Utu? Where is our Utu or Ubuntu, our humanity? Where is it? Because if we don't go back to that root of our humanity, we are not going to see each other as brothers. You see, we are still going to amass as much as we can and even take land away from them. Have you not seen where governments actually displace people from their own land? You see that somebody bought a land, the government came in, brought down the old documents, you realize that land was belonging to somebody else. So somebody is still being chased in a land. And these are things we need to set fast and need to solve them. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you very much. We have our brother Victor Otieno, who we haven't had, would like to also come and contribute. Please do. I think Brother Kwame, it's been a while now. After him, if you have something to say, please.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope you can get me clearly. Yeah, so
very well.
I'm so okay. Yeah, so I'm so moved with the topic that you're having today in terms of looking at the diaspora, the land issue, and all that. And I'll say that indeed the continent is more of suffering from systematic challenges. I think that is the first foundational aspect of what is even bringing us all these issues. And this is the only topic that we really need to stand strong into, because it is what affirms our sovereignty in our country and in where we are. Because once we don't have a land, you don't have any sovereign capability or authority or anything that you can do in your country. And even if you can take a case study from Zimbabwe, what took place, in historical context, you get that they had to move every company, anything like was westernized because of land. So it's a very contagious issue that we really need to approach that critical formula in terms of addressing it. And it does not just stop at speaking about it and stopping at that point, but it needs to have a very a more of a creative framework of approach in terms of looking how to solve this. Because indeed, there is a very big question that we need to answer ourselves, that yes, the system is created in a way that it doesn't allow us, or it doesn't allow our brothers within the diaspora to have that accessibility and usage in where we are in Africa. So I think the first critical question is to understand the systematic challenges. And these systematic challenges is not linked to a linear format of seeing things that, okay, we don't have the land, we want the land. It doesn't end there. It ends at looking at our social capital, is our human capital potential. Because I will tell you for a fact, today, Africa, you can say that, yes, we have won the land back, but you see even now that our population is not really well capacitated to link, or what we learn is not connected with our economy. So even if I'm going to do anything here, still I'm not going to be able to get the value of what I need to get to invest in the land. So you can have the land, but it's on the wastage, like it is just going without anything on that. So like we need productive use of that land as much as we want the land. So the approach is that we have a very big social capital in Africa that is being brought by the population. This can allow us to have the land, or it will allow us to like be more of now be vulnerable, because a population that is so huge but not productive are like just going to be a valve, like more of a, like he's a bomb. Let me say that way. Yeah, they're like they're able to like bring a lot of social vices, all that. But if you're able to monetize or like leverage on this social asset that is brought by the population, by looking at the potential, the human capital, not just looking at the social capital, the human capital, the potential that they can bring, so that when we start speaking about the land, we have the power. We have not just the power of speaking or advocacy, but the purchasing power to do this, because the voice is the already purchasing power. But having this voice in one platform needs a very critical mapping and creation. So my view is that we need to stand strong, not just by words, but by an action-oriented format that is going to bring this issue to be a very, because land is like South Africa, you see what is happening there. Zimbabwe, the country is under because of land, is nothing else. That is the truth in any way. Yeah. So even if Kenya here, we have got people who have got a mass, big lands, big, like they have got that piece of, while others are IDPs. Why? Is it the issue of social capital? Is it the issue of empowerment? What is the issue? And these are systematic still. Yeah. So my take is, let's get a takeaway from this conversation today, so that we're able to at least, in a way, we're able to do 1, 2, or 3 things that are going to promote the use and more accessibility. Yeah, our people from the diaspora, we really need your star support. Yeah, in terms of pushing this and getting this in the right tier, so that we're able to move ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. And I think Sister Ida has responses to you in the chat where she says, no one should be landless if they are born in Africa. And she thinks that all people in Africa need a piece of land. And I think we are being brainwashed most of the time to think that we have a population problem by those people who want our land from outside. So on that one,
is not a population problem. Is not a, so sorry for interjecting. Is not a population problem. Population comes with challenges and opportunities. Let me say, every generation, that is it. I'm not saying it's a problem. Like it comes with opportunity and also a challenge. But the challenge will lie automatically. So like we just have to use the challenge as a bridge. Let's just don't see it as a problem, but it's a bridge of what is going to take us to the next level. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that is correct. There could be challenges and there could be problems. There could be an economic opportunity with a huge population, but everything has to be worked out in the right way to make sure that we have allocated the land the right way. But the law has to be worked on. We need to work on the law to ensure that whatever we want to do going forward has a solid basis. Even our brothers from the the diaspora, when they come back, they have to find a system that works. I think we have heard from Brother Clyde there. One of the issues that puts off most of our brothers coming back are the systems that don't function. And there is that issue of lack of borderless moving, lack of migration across different boundaries in Africa. And just to remind you again, you said Ghana. Ghana, yes, Ghana is good, receptive, accommodative for our returning brothers and sisters, but Sierra Leone is also one of those. But with Sierra Leone, you need to prove by DNA, positive DNA, that you are from there. But there is no law across the whole continent, across the whole African Union that says this is how we are going to treat our brothers and sisters from the diasporas. In fact, the African Union, what they are trying to do is treat the diaspora as a sixth region of the African Union. I don't know what that entails, but it's a matter of designing the right laws for Africa, taking Africa into into the perspective where Africa is. Brother Jason Clark, you have been with us for a while. Please come on board.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. I don't say a lot, but I listen and meditate on what you guys are saying. I reside here in Mississippi, USA.
Oh, thank you, brother.
And I lived in Tanzania for a while, so I know a little bit of Swahili. But as a millennial, I see that with all the the African human intelligence that we do have on both sides, a lot of the brothers and sisters that come over here to the diaspora, psychologically, many of them do not want to build with one another over here at all. And what I see a lot of, when I was in Tanzania, I see all the people that are, non-African. It's like systematically they're giving doors open up for them, but I have a lot of knowledge and background, skill sets, and networking here in the state of Mississippi, and it's challenging to find doors that we can build together. For our structure wise, you guys hit on the law, and as I'm listening to you guys, I'm hoping I'm making some sense. I'm sorry if I'm not, but I don't think we can look to the African Union or even the UN, stuff like that, to come up with a solution. It must come from us who are free-minded thinkers. I'm a global African. That's how I look at it. Our presidents have been all over this world, and we should have entitlement to move freely on this world. And it's sad that we cannot move freely at all. The UN to me was created to block Africa as a whole from uniting. And this is why Africa's in the diaspora, we don't even build together with one another. And believe it or not, here in America, African Americans, so-called African Americans, they won't have a political voice at all here in the next 10 years because the immigrants will move up the ladder in this political structure legally, and they will have more of a say-so here and how things are governed out. So you're talking about a people who've been here over 500 years who are losing political and economical power. That is crazy, and you can't even return back home to take your science and knowledge that you gain and build back over there. Hope you follow a little bit what I'm trying to say here.
We do.
So I'm gonna be quiet, but I wanted to say something. Not I don't have all my thoughts together, but I wanted to say that when I meet African brothers over here, I learn a lot. I know a lot of language, or I know some of the greetings. So I try to make sure I show my African self when I see them, And then I tell them, we really need to find ways to build together here, right here in Mississippi, because you have a lot of black Americans here in Mississippi who have land, but they don't have all the science and as far as farming or whatever you want to call it. But the system is trying to take all their land from them. Okay, right here in America. So I'm sharing some of these. So it's like the same thing is going over there. It's going over here to the same the people of African descent over here. People who are died in blood and who pay for the land, who trying to hold their land here. They're changing laws over here that whether your property taxes go up so high, the government does eminent domain. They take their land, and black folks in America have a history of this going on. And then you have the young ones who don't value the land no more because they're so detached from the land. So all I'm saying is some of us who still going back to our higher self, our deeper roots, and we want to do those things. But I look at it like you said Sierra Leone. I know a lot of Sierra Leone folks here that live here in Jackson, Mississippi, where I'm living at. And I know they have the skill sets in how to cultivate the land or whatever it may be. But it's like they're chasing the American nightmare. They call it a dream. They're chasing the American dollar. And I know the African diaspora, we send a lot of money back to the motherland. I know that science. I know about that. But at the same time, we could be building up ecosystems over here that can help out over there, or vice versa. If you follow what I'm saying. And that is one of my challenges here. Challenge is also an opportunity. That's one of the great opportunities they have here. But the reason why I've been with you guys for so long, because I've been trying to learn and figure out how can I take this information I'm gaining and find like-minded people who share the same vibrational energy, who want to do the same, So I'm gonna be quiet, but I wanted to say something, not say nothing at all. But a lot of us, I know that one call, I think it was Victor or somebody said earlier that, of course, there's not a mass of us who want to come over there back to the motherland. I would strongly disagree because I'm 38. I have a lot of my millennials who do not think like their forefathers. They see the hell that we're living in here in America. They see it, and they're tired of it. Okay, and they do want to come back, but it's like systematically. I also know that from being in Africa, I'm an Air Force vet, so I've been in the military for a while. I've seen things how this global system puts people at odds, divide us, and then it's crazy because the land yields so much that you can consume. You see? And so my thing is, why are we paying for all this? Why are things so expensive? You follow what I'm going here. Yes, you got to have an ecosystem. Yes, you got to have ways to manage the land, but you also got to protect the land. And so if you're not willing to protect the land, to me, protect the land is you got to shed blood. It's a ritual. You might not want it, but at the same time, we're talking about the African diaspora coming over there. My thing is, okay, it's East Africa or whatever. What are you guys? What are we going to do? Because we can get land all day. You can give us land. I'm more about how do we protect the land, knowing Sankofa, knowing your past. If you know the past ways like this, these people, these foreigners, I hate to say it like this, at the end of the day, they are practicing universal law, and that's called self-preservation. That's one of the main things they're doing. Historically, that's what they're doing. You mentioned the British law, you mentioned the Dutch law. Those all come from the same region. They all come from the same. They're practicing their concise thought. And all I'm saying is, we could be humanitarian all day long. That's fine. But some of the youngest beings on this planet got to be put in check. It's gonna be very hard for us to move forward. Yes, we got to go through the fire, but I'm just saying that some things we don't have to keep on repeating. That's all I'm saying. On that note, I'll be quiet. Peace and blessings, guys.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much for sharing. I don't know if you are in Farmers of Thought or which group you are coming from, but Farmers of Thought have different pillars. We also have the economics pillar in Farmers of Thought. And Consciousim study group, we meet on Saturdays at 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. to discuss some of these issues. We are very grateful for you joining us today. We hope you can join us again in future. For today's event, it was mostly about the law, the governance. So Farmers of Thought governance pillar, we are trying to come up with something that works for the Africans. And we are trying to put our heads together to think harder, say, how can we deal with this? What way can we go to deal with this? So that's when we had my brother who was talking about customary law and comparing that with the common law, which of course is based largely on the Roman Dutch law. And also, of course, there is the English law. But what you said there is true. We can only be the solutions for our problems. We are not expecting someone else to come and solve our problems for us. Hence why we are congregating here today. Otherwise, we'll be waiting for the African Union to come up with something. That is why we are sitting here where we are today. And thank you for your time. Brother Kwame, I'm seeing that the time is running. You want to say something before we go towards the close?
Yeah, no, thank you. As you know, Consensusism as a study group discusses philosophy and ideology. And when we meet on Thursdays, we share our thinking. And that is so important for people to share their thinking. And in the sharing of thinking, we listen to one another, we support one another, and so on. So when we are in a space like this, I like to listen to what people also have to say rather than just me also talking. I have been listening, and I want to thank everyone for well, thank you for sharing it today, because I think your meeting was meant to be for an hour or so, but we decided it should run from now. It's running from 6 to 9. So no, thank you, Brother Coco, for sharing what essentially is what was meant to be presentation on law, and then it's extended now to law in terms of the continent. But Brother Carrington appeared to say that the law we are looking at is a law of property law, which then made me think, how does Brother Carrington see property? When we say property, how does he see it? So what I think has been largely absent in our discussion today is the reason why we started the Saturday classes. And the reason we started the Saturday classes is so that on days like this, we have a conversation around the total liberation, total unification, and the total development of Africa. That we were of the view that people were not discussing the African situation enough in the terms of our own. Can you please hold? Yeah, very sorry about that. So yeah, I was saying so Saturdays are meant to discuss, for us to have a conversation amongst ourselves as Africans. And thanks for Brother Jason from Mississippi. We see him as an African. I'm glad he also sees himself as an African. I am in England, he's in Mississippi, you are in England, as well, Brother Coco. So in effect, we are already in the diaspora. Now, so what as I said, has been missing is the continental dimension. And that when we are talking about the law, as we've been discussing, using Lesotho as an example, one can see the Lesotho situation on the law as if you like, an example of the continental situation. And so the question then is what, in terms of the protection of property, as Brother Jason has mentioned, what institution can go into the future protect African property? And when we say African property, let us be clear what we mean. We mean the property, as Brother Pigeon has said, the property out of which the welfare of the people becomes the supreme law. So that means a property that is actually the property of the people that has been appropriated by powerful people, powerful institutions, and so on. And how do we protect property of the people? So we are of the view that what Kwame Nkrumah suggested is the way forward, which is that we need a Pan-African state, we need a continental government, and the continental government will have an army, continental army. That army should be drawn from all the nationalities of Africa, not the new colonial states, but the nationalities. So in that government, we'll have the Luos, we have the Kikuyus, we'll have the Evers, we'll have the Romos, we have every nationality should be represented in that continental army. And its role will be to defend Africa. At the moment, we don't have it. So on Saturdays, that is what our discussion is meant to circle around. And so in looking at the law, the question then is, what should the continental legal situation be? And I think we have already said that the continental legal situation should be that the law that is supreme in Africa should be our own laws, which is our customary law, which express the way we live. But as I have said earlier, the problem with the way we lived is that it did not protect us the way it should have. And we do not also have the power to even protect our way of life. So our way of life was destroyed in many, many ways. So to protect our way of life or the customary law, we have to go back to a continental, not go back because it was never there, but create a continental institution, which is a continental government that that has an army, a continental lawmaking body that will protect and train people in our customary law, and so that we can overthrow the Roman Dutch law or the law that those who belong to the secret societies impose on us, but they are not transparent, and those laws. So a continental government is the way forward. We have to have a continental government. And that continental government, its primary role should be to protect the welfare of the people. And the welfare of the people can only be protected if it protects their property. So when we say property, let's be clear, we're not talking about land here. Let's not think that when we say property, we mean just land. When we talk about property, we mean the air that we breathe, the seas, the lagoons, the rivers, and everything in it. We're talking about the air above us, all the way up to the sky and everything above. All of that is part of our land. Yeah. So when we talk about the land, we mean that the totality of our existence. Now we are not talking here as materialists, and as materialists, we're not talking about just spiritual things. Yeah, although that is a big part of the African language, we believe in spirit so much, but we don't discount that when we are saying that, including while we accept that there's the spirit, let us look at the matter, and by matter we mean all kinds of matter, all kinds of matter that we, including even we ourselves, because we don't own ourselves. We are members of families. Understand? We belong to clans. We belong to extended families. We belong to families. We are children of a woman or some man. So we don't even own ourselves. Okay. So when we talk about property, we are talking about the totality of our existence. And that is what the continental government must protect. And it's only when it protects that it can protect the welfare of the people and therefore uphold the supreme law. Because of the time, I will just say this, that I will say a few things that Brother Clyde has drawn our attention to what some in culturology will say the if you like the sometimes what we call the focus on the past, what has happened in the past, and then some people will focus on the present, and then some will focus on the future. Our politicians, liberals, conservatives, they focus on the now. Our politicians generally do not look at the past. They're not interested in what will happen in 100 years' time. They are just interested in how much wealth they can amass today, once in power, and so on. Understand? And then we have a lot of Africans who are interested in the past, what happened in Kemet, what happened in the ancient times, and so on. That's also important. But so important also is the future. And I think as conscientists and as radical Pan-Africanists, although we value the past and respect the present, we are saying that we who are here and all those who are also not here, what we should be looking at is how do we create a future of which we are a part that we can pass on to our children, because we will move on. So who is supposed to do this work? And Brother Jason has mentioned that. He mentioned free-minded people. Yes, and I agree with that. Some think the AU should do it. Some think the UN should do it. Some think, as Brother Jason has said, he's a millennial like myself, although I'm not, I think he's my senior, that it should be free-minded people. And that's also important. But I would say that we need all these, we need free-minded people working with these institutions, because these institutions are here. They won't disappear today. They won't disappear tomorrow. So we have to find ways of working with these institutions. It is as if we are in the belly of the whale. So to come out of the whale, we have to find a way of getting out of the whale first. Yeah. So, so the Mississippi issue, which is also an issue in Africa, lands people have been taken away from them. Again, I would see that as something that the continental government of Africa will have the power to deal with. If people are taking away the land of Africans, whether it is in China, whether it is in Ireland, whether it's in Mississippi in America, a continental African government will have the power, the clout, to talk directly to the US government, directly, and say, look, stop taking the land of our brothers and sisters in Mississippi, or in Iran or Iraq, wherever. At the moment, we don't have that kind of continental clout. So I think at the end of the day, everything comes back for us as radical Pan-Africanists. Everything comes back to continental government of Africa. The Marcus Garvey system, whereby he's saying that Africans must return to Africa. And incidentally, Marcus Garvey himself was buried in England here. Yeah. But the guy who opposed him, Du Bois, died in Ghana, is buried in Ghana, and a center is named after him. Garvey himself, no. But yeah, he was the one fighting Garvey over the return to Africa. So, Clyde was saying that there are people are not clamoring to return to Africa. And there's some truth in that. There are people who say they are not even Africans. There are Americans who are saying they are not Africans, that they are indigenous, even though they are black. They are indigenous Americans. So they don't want to return to Africa. So we accept that there are people who will not return. But there are some who want to return, right? And there are also some who would not like to return, but would like to come and go. We must accommodate everyone. So again, because of time, I will end there and say that for us as radical Pan-Africanists, everything comes back to continental African government. Thank you.
Yeah, Thank you very much, my brother, for that well-encompassing summary. And you can see they are clapped. I mean, Carrington is clapping for you there. Well done. Today we met here to talk about the law. After a 30 minutes or so introduction by our guest, we then sat down to discuss what we learned from it. It became clear quickly that the land will take over. The issues over land will take over. And as a result of that, I'm going to read a short passage here, which talks about the African and the land, because it is that important. So it says here, one thing the subsistence economy does produce is an intense, lifelong passion for land. And because you remember, we came from subsistence farming as Africans. For land means security, not only those patches that are actually under cultivation or providing pasturage for livestock, but also the surrounding bushveld, which in the worst of times, when all the crops have failed and all the cattle have died, will still yield a few edible leaves and roots and grubs to sustain the life of the tribe. Land and community became inseparable, woven together in the matrix of tribal society. That is who we are as Africans. You take the land from us, you've taken our livelihood, you've taken our lifeblood. Hence, it is important to go back, think again, whose land is it? And what is its significance to the African people? So here, it says again, the land was revered in ritual. It held the bodies of the tribal ancestors. It was a concretion of the tribe itself. The thing that gave it life and substance and security and identity. It could not be owned individually. It was held by the tribe collectively and vested in the chief, who could allocate its use, but not its title. This is who we are as Africans. Then our law has to recognize who we are. We have had to transform so rapidly, so quickly, within 2 centuries of meeting with the Europeans. We have moved from that subsistence farming to who we are today, trying to live in the cities all over the world and in Africa itself. But in the soul of that is the African. We need to recognize who we are and come back together. We need the law which brings out the African himself and recognize who he is to the land in which he lives, to the continent of Africa, and to Mother Universe. I thank you very much. My name is Coco, and today has been a wonderful session. I hope we do have more sessions like this and under the auspices of either Farmers of Thought Governance or Conscientism Study Group, which, as Brother Kwame has said, we meet on Thursdays and Saturdays. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Brother,
Coco.
sorry, Brother Coco.
Yes, brother.
You know the title of your group, Farmers of Thought.
Yes.
That's an interesting one, because I don't know if you know. That is my language. That is what we call thinkers. Thinkers. Yeah. We say what is Ungladelau. That means farmers of thought. So it's interesting when I heard you say farmers of thought. I'm thinking. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's it from me. I have after brother Pigeon has spoken, I have Africa Unite that we can play, and the people can leave whenever they like. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody else, and thank you, Brother Coco, for this. We are always open to host such conversation as a class that can aid us towards achieving our total goal of liberation, unification, development. So everybody else feel most welcome. Of course, the link we shared today for this meeting is the link for our Saturday meetings. We don't change it. And Brother Coco, in case you have any other agenda or any other meeting you have slotting, feel free to contact us and get in touch. We'll always be ready to see how we can do this and how we can have these meetings. And I appreciate Brother Kwame for that and Sister Aida for that acceptance. And all of you, let's have a blessed evening and let's meet. Either if you can manage it on our Thursday class, we'll share the links also for where we discuss philosophy. Ours is purely philosophy and ideology. Then now we connect it to the action part. So as I was saying before, the thought need to be found, and ours is to thought for action. So we must go through the farming, the planting of the thought, the harvesting and the cultivation of the thought, and then we put the thought into action. So we are also farming the thought, and we are also still farmers of the same thought for action. So thank you very much, everybody. And allow me to stop the recording here before Brother Kwame plays the music. Thank you very much.